So here to introduce herself and her talk on Therapeutae in the Nazarene Essenes, Nanette Crist.
Thank you. So today we're going to be talking about super secret holy foods, which I first got interested about 50 years ago. I was reading the Edgar Casey readings, and he said that when Jesus and Mother Mary were being trained by the Nazarene Essenes on Mount Carmel, Israel, that they were given a special diet, and elsewhere, holy foods. Paul Solomon also talked a little bit about this, but they never said what they were. So by the time I was 21, I was already deep into Christian mysticism and yoga, and had been doing all of the various disciplines you just heard Marcus talk about. At that point, I started to recognize that when we change our diet also, it makes a drastic difference. For instance, going off of sugar and eating organic. For a while I was just a vegetarian, and you open very quickly when you're a vegetarian. But it's not for every lifestyle or every body type. So what happened was, as I studied the Casey readings, here we see on the left my painting of Rata, who was the high priest. He came from the Caucasus into Egypt at the time of Atlantis. That is the last time before it went down. And he instituted an incredible society there that was totally enlightened. And Rata also laid down the foundations for what later became Judeo-Christianity, Zoroastrianism, and others. In fact, the readings of Casey describe him as an incarnation of the Christ and named 12 others. So as the Casey reading said, Christ in one age, Christ in all ages, Jesus in one age. And on the other side here, we see Count Saint Germain. I was asked to paint him, and as Marcus just described, you have to test the spirits. So my mother came running in and said, "There's the room glowing violet, Saint Germain must be here." So I went out, and sure enough, there was Saint Germain standing in our living room. Anyone who was a little bit spiritually open would have seen him. And I tested him and I said, "How do I know you're really Saint Germain? That wasn't your real name." He said, "What do you want to know?" And he said, I want to know, how did you live to be over 250 years old? And it's documented in the courts of Europe in the 1700s. And he said he found out that when the sunlight is captured by the blood of the plants, as he called it, is converted into pure white light energy that not only plants can harvest, but we can harvest too. And when we absorb this light, it enhances our life force, or prana, or chi. And you can go to the next slide. So it took a couple of years before I discovered what it was. He said, he answered a number of questions, but I'm only going to focus on that today. And he said that this was a species of algae that would soon be made public. It was not at that time. So remarkably, I told Tom Johnson, the owner of the Heritage Stores who manufactured the Casey remedies, about this experience. And Tom said, "Wow, Nan, I have to find out if that is available anywhere." So he did some research, and amazingly he finds out that Paul Solomon had mentioned super blue-green algae in one of his readings a long time ago. And he said to me, "Do you know Paul?" I said, "No." And he said, "Well, you've got to come meet him. He's the only other person who talked about this." So here we have a picture of this particular species of algae. It's not Corilla, it's not Spirulina, it's super blue-green algae, and it is from Klamath Lake between California and Oregon. And when I was driving by there many years later, it smelled like purest oxygen. So apparently this algae existed near his hometown, and he discovered it that way. And so I later asked him if he would work with another scientist to redevelop these things. Well, it turns out not only did he do that, but I was called by another person who had helped to establish the original Celtec algae company that they had heard I had this revelation, and they said Saint Germain had appeared to them to start the super blue-green algae company called Celtec. And it's C-E-L-L Tech, T-E-C-H. And it was two brothers who later split. But that was a confirmation of that revelation. What does the algae do for you? It is super antioxidant. It has complete amino acids. It builds your immunity, and it increases longevity. And I should say, it also fights off most diseases. It's antibacterial, antifungal, and even kills spirochetes. I had one client when I was doing holistic health consultations who told me she had actually had Lyme's disease 3 times and discovered that she never got symptoms because she was on super blue-green algae. So I highly recommend you can get that frozen, liquid, or in powder, and you can find that online. I'm not endorsing any particular company, but as I understand it, some of them get the algae at the top of the lake and some at the bottom of the lake, so you have to choose what you like better when you do your own research. Could I have the next slide, please? Then I discovered, and this was totally unknown to me at the time, that there was secret holy foods. There were superfoods that we don't ever hear about in the West. You know, in fact, I don't even think most people anywhere in the world know about them. So what you're hearing today is a revelation. We're going to get through 3 or 4 of them. I know of 10 so far. That was used by the ancient initiates of the mystery schools, the prophets, the seers, the prophetesses, and also the priests and priestesses in ancient times. And it was used by the Essenes. So I went to Israel. Now, here's a picture of the ruins where Jesus and Mother Mary were trained, where the Nazarene Essenes lived on Mount Carmel. That's actually a more recent construction on top of the ruins of their site. And going up both sides of the mountain are terraces, and they actually hybridized foods based on the inspiration of the Holy Spirit and the angels that have come down to us today. They were known as the people who were the greatest healers of their time, and of course they wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls, but also trained Jesus and Mother Mary according to the Casey tradition. Now you can change slides again. And most of you know I had a vision of Jesus. This is a small painting, you can get one in the back if you'd like, of the vision of Jesus that was confirmed as a true likeness by the visionaries of Medjugorje, Colorado, South America, and several other people who are near-deathers who saw Jesus in the spiritual world. And this painting on the left is the one of Mother Mary, which I also have here in print form if you would like. They also confirmed that that's her true likeness. But what was so interesting to me is when I first saw her in an Christmas time vision during the singing of Silent Night, I saw her face this close to me and I didn't see the environment. But later when I went to paint the picture, I saw this environment. There you see the arch, just like I later discovered in the Nazarene Essenes ruins. There you see those pink roses. Mary was called the rose without thorns. We also see Elijah's water and well in the picture if you look close enough, which I found decades later when I went to Mount Carmel. In fact, the Carmelites who live there now, they are a separate branch of the Catholic Church, nuns and monks, have an unbroken tradition, that's an oral tradition that has come down to them unbroken since time immemorial. The Druze and the Baha'i also have their headquarters there, by the way. And when Jesus' DNA was taken off the Shroud of Turin recently, it was discovered that his matrilineal DNA and genomes matched a Druze man, most closely on Mount Carmel. So there we have more confirmation. And when I showed the sisters this painting and said, Blessed Mother told me we all need to pray for her to appear to be seen and heard throughout the world, And I know that she came here and was educated here at the School of the Prophets. And so was Jesus. And I showed them the picture, and they said, go inside our chapel, and you'll see in the dome a mosaic showing them visiting their teachers coming out of the caves on Mount Carmel. And all around here are caves. So I want to focus on these flowers. My friend and I who took pictures the whole time we were there, we filmed 7 miracles while we were there. We were climbing up higher and higher looking for more, and nowhere else had I seen this rose except there. There it was where she is to live. So I went home, and my angel said to me in prayer, that is not just a rose that is beautiful or symbolic of her, because she was called the rose without thorns. It was her favorite rose because it's therapeutic. So I went to do research and identified the rose as a hybridized, ancient hybridization of 2 species of rock roses. And they're so therapeutic, they are considered a panacea. Science has confirmed that this species of rock rose, drunk as a tea, both flowers and leaves, will create super immunity, longevity. It kills this, just like the blue-green algae, every kind of harmful microbes. And most interestingly, it brings about illumination or enlightenment. That means even the photons in your physical body start to glow. So they were not only practicing prayer, meditation, fasting, selfless service, special diet, exercise, they were also consuming super secret holy foods. This species I've written on the bottom, if you can see it, is called Cistus incanus, Cistustincanus. And that is Mother Mary's rose. So in a few moments, James is going to get us the little samples of the tea. I made it as a cold tea for us today, so you can all sample it. And we're going to try that out. Don't go yet, James, I want you to hear this part. So change the slide, please. So here we see, I have to go over here. Can I take the mic off? No?
Yeah, just pull it.
Here we see one of the readings, and I want to make sure I'm referring it to correctly. Casey's reading here says, were they put on a special diet, no wine, no fermented drink ever, which of course was true of the Nazarenes generally. Special foods, yes, they were kept balanced, according to what was said by Rata. Okay, next. Okay, you probably can't read this, but basically what it's saying is that the special diet was not specified as to exactly what it was, but there was holy foods that were given. Okay. Now we come to the Buddha. I'm going to move quickly so we can have time for questions. When I did a painting of the Buddha, which is there on the right, also through Revelation, I discovered through my research there was 9 Buddhas in different ages. We only know about Siddhartha. But those 9 Buddhas, remarkably, were all enlightened under the same Bodhi tree or Bodhi tree, or the same species, let's say the descendant of the same tree, on the same energy vortex, in the same place, going back to the age of giants. So we have a Bodhi tree, which everybody said, oh, that's symbolic of illumination and the nervous system and the endocrine system and the tree of life and all of that. But it's actually much more. The Bodhi tree is a species of fig tree. And it's a special fig called sacred fig, or Ficus religiosa. Now, Edgar Casey's readings and Paul Solomon confirmed also said that figs and dates open you, and sesame, open sesame, sesame seeds open you spiritually. So here we have the Buddhas fasting and praying and meditating underneath the Bodhi tree, which happens to be a sacred fig. Guess what they were eating? So I did research on this species of figs after identifying it. And this sacred fig tree also has incredible vitamins and nutrients and trace minerals that you can't get anywhere else. You can switch again. Okay. What it does is, this fig will go into your system and tone up your endocrine glands, tone up your pineal, which the other things I mentioned do too. And the pineal, most of you know, is your third eye. So when you open your pineal gland and you get rid of the toxins, you're able to perceive spiritually. And not only retrocognitive, but clairvoyantly, as John was talking about, but also to hone in your intuition generally. Now, this brings in the white light of God. I have to caution you. At the time that I was speaking about these things, I discovered that as I was speaking at global science conferences about Dr. George Merkel, who was my science mentor, who had redeveloped the elixir of life, and we had tested it and had doctors test it around the world with incredible results, including curing terminal illnesses and cell rejuvenation and everything else. It was found that in its rawest form, most of these substances and foods are safe to consume, but you must monitor your thoughts and feelings. That's why they were reserved for the priests and the priestesses and the prophets, because they were trained to think unselfishly, to think pure thoughts, and to be focused on goodness. Because some of these things, if you eat a lot of them, they will amplify whatever you're thinking or feeling, good, bad, or indifferent. So you may not want to take it when you're going through a divorce or bankruptcy or something like that. Okay? But the rest of the time, you can take it when you're spiritually attuned, and you want to attune even more. And the reason for that is all of them had something called monoatomic gold. We don't have time today to get into all the science behind that, but that was when I spoke about Dr. Merkel's elixir of life. The other speaker, David Hudson, who had rediscovered monoatomic gold, which is a type of gold nanoparticle that goes in and out of a high spin state. It's superconductive, which means when we consume monoatomic gold elements, we become superconductive. That doesn't mean we're electrified. That means we become more spiritually enlightened, more attuned, more happy, more harmonious, and more peaceful. But the monoatomic elements are present in every one of these super secret holy foods that the mystery school masters were consuming. And this is one that a lot of beekeepers didn't even know about. This is called bee bread, B-R-E-A-D. Now, when I studied the Essenes, I discovered that they never traveled anywhere without their unleavened bread, which was not like matzahs. It was a beautiful, rich, dense bread. Like Essene bread used to be made in modern times. And it was called the bread paten. And they also had a similar bread, only for the priests, in the temple of Israel. And that bread was called the bread of the presence of the Lord. Rabbis who are initiates will tell you that this bread had monoatomic gold, or the philosopher's white powder, in it. However, they said they lost the recipe. Well, God is gifting us back those foods and those elements so that people now will once again be able to claim their rightful inheritance that they had before the fall. When they purify their hearts and live virtuously, they'll be able to consume the monoatomic elements. And it is very present as well in this picture here, which is bee bread. Most people know about propolis and honey and how good that is for you. All its antibacterial properties. Bee bread is something else. The bees actually make their own enzymes, and they produce this from within their own bodies. So if there is a time where they can't feed their offspring, they have this bee bread. So it's super dense, super nutritious, and in ancient times it was called the food of the gods. I know a lot of you have probably heard about the food of the gods from reading mythology, and everybody says, oh, maybe it was marijuana or something else. No. It was monoatomic gold, and in particular, the bee bread. Now, before we run out of time, I want to let you know, you can get any of these things I brought to you today online. You may even be able to grow the sacred fig tree in this climate in your garden, so you can have your own figs. You can get the super blue-green algae online. You can get bee bread online. It usually comes dried. I kept mine refrigerated anyhow because I was experimenting, wasn't sure how fast I would consume it. It tastes kind of like raisins, but it has an earthy flavor to it. And it's a super nutrient, has vitamin packed, has literally, you could eat them instead of vitamins because they're that incredible. And they have monoatomic gold. So I want to hear from every one of you all your experiences with these superfoods as you try them out. And almost every one of them has to be imported from the Levant. You can't just go to your grocery store or health food store and find them. But you can find them online and always get organic. And now I'm going to ask James if he would go and get the little sample cups. We have communion cups of Mother Mary's tea. I've added a little honey, a little organic honey, organic monk fruit, and a little organic lime to it because we're serving it cold today. Some people might get it plain. I think it's delicious. And the rose is the highest vibration of anything that you can smell or consume for aromatherapy. Sometime in the future, if there's interest, I'll talk more about, you heard a little bit about aromatherapy, but there are particular holy aromas and biblical aromas that were reserved for those who were on the spiritual path. If you could pass that out to each person who wants to try it, and I'll answer questions while we're doing that. Are there any questions on the bee bread or any of the things we've discussed? Yes.
When you say you can get it online, how pure is it? You know, there are so many people that put stuff out that they say is something. Which are the better? Is there a particular brand, or is there...
Brand of what?
For all these, you said you can get all of these online. How do you define how pure, which the best brands are, or where to look up?
Nanette, repeat.
Okay, I don't normally endorse products.
Repeat the question.
I'm sorry,
Repeat the question.
Okay, the question was, how do you know which brand is pure? I would suggest you look for organic. If you can't find organic, get wild crafted. Almost all of the Mother Mary's tea that's organic, you can get it as a powder, you can get it as a tincture, you can get it as the loose tea. I'll tell you the strongest flavor, which you're tasting today, is from the loose tea that includes the flowers. And I have organic neem honey in it, which is interesting. I find that honey, you should never add honey when the tea is very, very hot, because the honey, it ruins all the good things in the honey. You're supposed to wait till it cools down before you add honey. I use monk fruit because it doesn't have any calories and it's all organic, and it's called Lohan, very natural organic monk fruit as well, instead of honey at home. And they originally used bee balm, which has a slightly lemon flavor. That I didn't have today, so we're letting you try this one. Any more questions?
It's delicious. What's in it?
Since you've got companies online that are legitimate and companies that are not, just going online might not...
Okay, what I want to tell you is I would not suggest that you buy any monoatomic gold online unless it's endorsed by David Hudson, and there's only one that maybe might have been. And the reason is most of the monoatomic gold alchemists I know have died because they were doing nothing that they should have been doing. They were just experimenting with chemistry and using lye and things like that to leach it out. That's not how David did it. David cannot release his to the public because it doesn't, it tests as 99% nothing. until you put it into a very advanced spectrographic analysis. But maybe in the future we'll be able to have that. That's why I prayed. I said, God, we don't have the elixir of Dr. Merkel's anymore because he was murdered for all the wonderful things he was doing. He was told he'd bankrupt the economy, and they took him out. And also longevity was an issue, and health was an issue with the people that don't want that for us. So I said, God, what can we do? And that was why the super secret holy foods were revealed. They have monoatomic elements, and they do the same things, but you can consume them. I would suggest with the tea, you do it every few days, and then later on you can do it every day if you want, because you'll go through a little detox if you need it. After that, it's just something that you can use regularly. The bee bread, the same thing. Start out moderately and then build up to consuming it more often. With the figs, you may not be able to get them as readily unless you grow your own. There are some nations like Turkey that actually have dried figs, and you may be able to find it, but these were originally from India. So I'm in the process of ordering the sacred fig tree to grow them here. I've got a giant regular fig tree in my yard. I think we're out of time, right, Jerry? 3 more minutes, one more question. Anybody else? Yes.
This was really delicious. The tea was delicious, and what did you put in it?
Okay.
Repeat the question.
She wants to know, what did I put in the tea? It was delicious, and it is. I put in just the organic Mother Mary's loose leaf tea, strained it, because it's stronger that way than the powder or the tincture. And then I added, I used pure water, purified water. I used raw organic honey. I think this time I used neem honey because that's what I had on hand, but you can use any kind. And you wait till it cools a little bit before you put it in. Don't put the honey in when it's still hot. Then I put monk fruit because I didn't want to put too much honey. And monk fruit was a tincture. I carry a little bottle of organic monk fruit liquid. There's no alcohol in it. It's delicious. And that's by Now, N-O-W. And then I added a little lime because I like my tea with either lemon or lime is milder and sweeter. But like I said, originally they also made something like a toddy out of it. And they did add some other herbs, including the bee balm.
This was delicious.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not drinking that every day, do you? And you can drink it hot or cold. So I thank you so much. I'll be in the back with my paintings. If anybody wants prints of any of the visionary art, it's half off today. And as a gift for your loved ones, it'll bring them inspiration, healing, and comfort. God bless you.